been in public education since 1972. He's highly qualified in his field. He taught at middle and high school levels, taught at university level in educational administration, and led superintendents in their study of the future. He served as building level administrator for over a decade, worked in school improvement and school reform since 1992. He's been at SDAC since 1991 as they began their accreditation process through QPA. Today his duties center around schools of the future. Working with SDAC staff, educators, board members, and other policymakers on the transition of schools in the information age. He officially retired September 2005. We all know about the retired guys here. But is still employed at SDAC on a part-time basis. He serves as observer liaison between SDAC and KSDE, helping coordinate activities and interactions between the two agencies. This is off the record. He told me that he inadvertently became involved in assisting communities in rural America to increase their population by improving their economies. He works as a facilitator when a community chooses to improve their situation in the rapidly declining rural areas. I'm sure we can all agree that the success of the community is directly connected to the success of a school district. Sadly, St. John's School District 350 has recently been affected by the decreasing population. These declining times are not isolated to any one single community. Our entire county is affected. All of rural America is experiencing it. Thus, we're being totally inclusive and inviting all citizens of Stafford County to participate by working together and getting behind a county-wide program. Thank you for attending this evening. Please give a warm welcome to tonight's speaker, Dr. Steve Wyckoff.
You know, when you read that, I really sound older. Good evening. I'm glad you're, in fact, I'm really glad there's a big crowd here because oftentimes when we do something with rural communities, we don't have much of a crowd. And so I want you to know up front that I kind of backed into doing this kind of stuff because I've really spent my whole life in education. In fact, I spent a couple hours Monday morning at Stafford High School talking with the high school staff. And so that's mainly what I do now. Since I retired, I do a lot of stuff with workforce development. I work with the Kansas Career Pipeline, which is a program to help kids identify careers. And I do a lot of stuff with workforce training, especially in the Wichita area. And as a result of that, I've become really aware of what's going on in our rural communities. In Kansas, 2/3 of our districts, school districts, have declining enrollment. So 2/3 of our communities are losing population in the state. So, you know, it's a real issue. And
I'm sorry.
Steve invites me over and steals my water. With my work, I do a lot of facilitation of school boards. I help them set goals and talk them through, help them through setting their goals, and I do a lot of strategic planning with districts. And I kind of got involved with working with communities out of Colby. And I ended up going from the school board to a community group, to the city council, to the college trustees, to the county commission, and now they've got a big effort, inclusive effort in Thomas County to do the kind of stuff that Steve was talking about. So, what I want you to know about tonight is you're here for input. I don't have all the answers. In fact, I have very few answers. You ask the people that know me, I have almost no answers. But I do want to help you facilitate tonight so that you might decide whether or not you want to do something about the future of Stafford County. So, you know, the reason we're here is this. Do the citizens of Stafford, should have said county, huh? Wow, that was a faux pas. Want to engage in efforts to develop a comprehensive strategy for long-term community sustainability. And basically that comes down at this. Our rural communities are going out of business in slow motion. But there are communities that are doing something about that. And why we're here tonight is to talk a little bit bit about what you might want to do about that. So when I started talking to Steve, we've had a lot of conversations. And he said, we really need to tell the citizens some of this stuff and let them decide what they want to do. Okay? So that's why we're here tonight. Now, as we're going along, if you have questions or anything at any time, just let me know. I'll be glad to, I'll tell you I don't know, or I'll tell you what I think. But, you know, I'm not here to make decisions. I'm here to hear the decisions that you want. So speak up if you have something to say. There's going to be a couple of times tonight where I'm going to ask you to talk to each other and then ask me questions or give me information. So when I do that, don't just sit there. That's the principle when you come down. Do what you're told. The background is I actually became acquainted with you guys through the school board here in St. John. Now, I've done goal setting in Stafford with their school board when Ruth was way back as a school board member, and with St. John just recently helping them set goals for the school district. And so that's what led to this. When we talk about what you might do as a community, there are a couple of models out there, and I'm going to tell you about those. I'm going to tell you about Visioneering Wichita first. Understanding you are nothing like Wichita. But the thing that they did a big process where they included everyone, and they kind of created their own process from the ground up. And that's one approach, and I want to tell you a little bit about what they did. If you would remove Wichita from this and kind of think about what they're trying to do, in many ways it's what you want to do in Stafford County. It's about achieving far-reaching but attainable goals to make the region an excellent place to live. That vision and the goals were developed through a process that involved literally thousands of citizens in Wichita. To give you an idea of that, okay, these were their goals: to provide the citizens, public and private organizations, with the opportunity to adopt shared values, benchmarks, vision, and strategies to use in developing their future. Number two, to facilitate communications within the community so that reality and perceptions are in alignment. They had a terrible difference between what people thought and what the realities were in Wichita. I suspect there's some of that in Stafford County, that what you think may or may not be true. And to create a strategic plan to ensure a quality of life that encourages our young people to live, learn, work, and play in our regional community. Now that was their goals. The important thing is this though. They started out with a large steering committee. And I visited with the lady that heads up Visioneering Wichita. And I said, now listen, I'm working with Thomas County and Stafford County. We couldn't put together a 50-person steering committee, okay? But she told me this. She said, you've got to include everyone, and it's got to be regional. And that's why everybody from across the county was invited tonight. They did literally 30 focus groups where they brought groups in, and 8 community meetings that led to 52 groups of people giving data to them. They identified 2,800 issues that those citizens wanted to deal with in that community. That's a lot of issues to deal with. And they accepted every single issue that any citizen brought to the table. And they tried to group them together and incorporate them into their plan to improve. From that, they created a task force with over 400 community members that were involved in that. Now, what does that mean to you? The reason I showed you this is because you need to understand, if you're going to do something to improve the economic development of this area, you all got to work together. Everybody's got to do something. If you leave it up to a handful of people, they'll probably do something, and you'll probably be dissatisfied. So I think it means that you've got to do lots of listening and taking in from people what they want to do to improve the region. And there's a lot of smart people here. We have a lot of good ideas. Their collaboration resulted in shared vision for Wichita. MSA stands for Metropolitan Statistical Area. The government assigns that. And it's all based on who leaves the community and comes to the community to go to work. So the government defines that area. And what they talked about, they came up with 6 areas that they needed to improve. Economic development, education, quality of life, infrastructure, government, and private sector leadership. That's what they did. Yours will be different, guarantee you. You have different issues out here. But again, it's the idea that do you as a community want to work together to develop your own plan? So that's one approach. That's the approach where you start from the ground and build it up. There's another organization that started in Nebraska, and this one is based around rural communities. So it's more well defined. The folks that do this, they help you, they have a better feel for what's going on in rural communities. And their comprehensive approach, HTC stands for Hometown Competitiveness. So they just call it HTC. And that encourages communities to take action in 4 strategic areas: leadership, youth, entrepreneurship, and charitable assets. And to give you an idea of what they do with you, by the way, I have no affiliation with this organization. I do know a person that's a facilitator for HTC, and I've already contacted her. If you're interested, she'll come and visit with you guys as much as you want. So there are regional people. She's at Butler Community College. Would be glad to come and work with you. So she's kind of helped me through this process. But the first thing they do is leadership development to strengthen the capacity for you guys to help yourselves, so that you let the leaders in the community emerge and take responsibility and leadership in the community to get things done. The second one is to work with your youth. Now, this is actually the one that's near and dear to my heart, because I'll tell you what's become clear to me about our schools. We do everything we can to take our best and brightest kids and get them to leave the community and never come back. We do that. We need to start taking our youth, and they start to work with you. How do you involve your youth in making the community better, so that when they graduate, when they get a post-secondary education, they come back here because they have a stake in it? And that's the second piece that they do, working with the schools to involve kids so that they either stay here or come back here. And that's a real important issue everywhere I go. 2 things. They say so many of our kids leave and they never come back, or they want to come back and there's nothing to come back to. There's no jobs for them. So we've got to work on both ends of that. Helping them come back, but having jobs and careers that they can have when they come back here. The third one is working with charitable assets. This has been really interesting to me because I never thought about it. They talk about the transfer of wealth from our rural areas out of state and out of the country, because as we move and inevitably all of us are going to pass away, that wealth is transferred to someone else. And they help you work with local people to keep some of that wealth here to facilitate the growth of the community. So, and what they do is they work with all of us that in our estates we start leaving some of the money to the community for growth of the community. And that's a big one because we have a lot of wealth in our rural communities. And then the last one, and this one is nearest and dearest behind kids to me, and it's entrepreneurship. And I know all of you would love it if some company would move in and bring about 100 well-paying jobs that you could apply for, or somebody you love and know could apply for. The chances of that aren't very good. But the chances that you can create entrepreneurs in Stafford County that can create new jobs, create new businesses, and bring more wealth to the community is pretty good. Okay? And I want to add a piece to this. One of the things in my research on all this that's starting to emerge is the idea of e-entrepreneurs, people that are entrepreneurs on the internet. It's become a fascinating subject for me. And if anyone's interested when we're done, we can talk more about it. The opportunities to generate wealth in a community like Stafford or St. John or Hudson or Maxville are off the charts, the possibilities. So we can visit more about that. But the hometown competitiveness is kind of a structured program. Now, the other option is maybe one of you know some process that you might go through. Okay? Or the other thing is, maybe you develop on your own a process. The point that I'm trying to make with all of this is, if you want to improve the economic status of your communities, then you can work together to do something. The point of this meeting tonight is to say, yes, we'd like to do something, or no, I don't think we're interested in it. And that's okay, if that's what you want to do in your community. So, with that, I'll tell you what I want to do for a minute. I want to let you tell your neighbor, spouses, I suggest you not talk to each other. It's okay if you do. Talk to each other for just a minute, and let's have some question and answer and dialogue, and see if we can't get some answers to some of your questions. So take a second, tell the person sitting by, what are you thinking about this? This is the part where you participate. If you want to hear that publicly, bring it up and I'll tell the whole story. embark on an endeavor to improve the community. Go ahead.
I'm new in the area.
Now, hold it. I've been in rural Kansas. Being new to the community is 20 years. Oh, okay. You're really new. Okay.
I see a lot of not wanting to communicate with each other. I hear, oh, well, they're from St. John, or they're from Stafford. They need to get together.
They don't play in football or anything, do they?
No.
No.
No, but we need to get together as a whole community and work at this, not just Stafford working at it and St. John working at it.
That is a true statement. if you're going to take on the idea of economic development, all 5 of the communities in the county have got to come together and collaborate. That's how you're going to pull it off. There are 5, right? Yes. 5 maybe. Well, everybody in the county's got to come together. I made the mistake in the Andale School District about trying to name all the communities. You can't do it. Is there 6? Who did well, you don't know who I left out.
I guess to be politically correct, to say the ones that are on the map.
The ones that are on the map need to come, even the ones that aren't on the map, Steve, need to come together. You seriously do. It has to become a regional effort to improve. Other comments or questions?
Would you articulate that story you told me about the wooden boats?
Okay. I've got real fascinated with e-entrepreneurship, doing stuff on the internet. It's just fascinating to me. So, and in fact, if you want to read, if you like to read, a really good book is called Internet Riches. But the thing that caught my attention was this. And what the author talks about, he's an entrepreneur from Silicon Valley. He's helped all kinds of people start businesses on the internet. And what he talks about is, if you try to sell something in Stafford or St. John or in Stafford County, what's the size of your market? You know, you put a tractor truck up on some corner, put a table out, how many people are going to see it? 100. On a really good day, you might get several hundred. You put it on the internet, your market just went to 3 billion. And in fact, he said, if you can sell that, whatever it is you're selling, to 1 in every 10,000 people, you're going to be a millionaire. And he tells the story on there, there's a couple from Minnesota that make wooden bathtub boats. You know, the kind you buy for your grandkids. They make $20,000 a year selling hand-carved wooden bathtub boats. $20,000 a year. I wouldn't have guessed you could make $20 a year selling. And so, you know, and I was in a conversation with a friend of mine, some of you may know, Deb Haneke, that used to be in the Stafford School District. And we're talking, and I said, what do you think that would mean to we were actually talking about this meeting. And she made a great comment. She said, and I'll ask you this, is there any wheat in this area? There's probably a little wheat. Do you know what people around the world would pay for a 1-pound bag of organically grown, whole wheat, healthy flour from Stafford County? Way more than they should. That's what they'll pay. And you have a market of 3 billion people for that. You know, I was over at Steve's this afternoon. You ever seen his wood carvings? Do you know how many of those he could sell around the world? We could keep him busy for another 10 years. Just sit and carve. He can make more wood chips than anyone you've ever known, by the way. I saw him. So, you know, as you think about the things that you have in Stafford County, if your market is the world, you can make a good living doing that today. And it's e-entrepreneurship. And it's not magic. You know, it's more of a science than it is an art. You just got to learn to do certain things. We have a lot of kids, by the way, at all the schools in the county that could really help us do a lot of that stuff. They figured most of it out. And that's why I always put with the entrepreneurship, I talk about the e-entrepreneurship that might be available. On top of just the entrepreneurship, you have a lot of businesses in town. If every business around could just add 1 employee, it would make a huge financial difference, economic difference in the communities. Other questions or comments?
It's a marketing thing, basically, right?
The whole all of it is marketing. The e-business is actually understanding how marketing works on the internet. I was telling Steve, you know where the top automobile seller in Hawaii, you know where they're located? Idaho. Because they can sell a car cheaper and ship it to Hawaii than what they can build a dealership in Hawaii for. Because of the internet, the marketing of it. And it's a fascinating industry. And I guess it's so fascinating because it's so new and non-traditional to me. Other comments? Go ahead, Steve.
Well, for instance, you know, I don't mean this in any pejorative way, but out here in rural America, not everyone, we've got a few in the audience that are computer gurus, but not everyone knows how to handle the internet. You know, that Dr. So-and-so that, buy my product, he'll teach you how to get on eBay. So what resources are available to to help, let's say Doris wants to make jelly on her part-time, when she's not nursing the county, in her back kitchen, what resources would you go to find out about marketing your product?
Well, I think you need to, you've got to, you work with Pratt or Great Bend Community College, or both. I suspect you could work with them, but I think you have an unbelievable resource with your kids in high school to help you with it. They're much more inclined to learn to do it. Yeah, there'd be some learning involved, but I think you have a huge resource there that's basically untapped.
The seed program, I've toured that, I think that's a wonderful
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, you know.
Opportunity for the community. The seed program is Japanese. This is doing major progress for Stafford.
Yeah. Now, this is my opinion that the kind of stuff we're doing with the entrepreneurship and stuff in Stafford, that ought to be the core of what we do in schools instead of the exception.
It should be.
No offense, Shakespeare hasn't done me any good in my life. No offense for those of you that love Shakespeare, but I get this argument all the time with people. Other comments? Questions? Go ahead.
Over there, we've got a product, it's called a jumping ring. We could make those things out of a bunch of old car axles for a core, and all of the microwave ovens that are people throwing away. We've got the coils we can get out of there. I've got this vision, you know, that we could, if we could get the facilities in the town to help me do this, you know, on a scale. There's no, and you look it up for the price in the Science magazine, they run about $200 or $300 for one of that size. We could make them for practically nothing.
You are exactly
And
right.
if I could just, and I'm not a business person or try to organize. I've lost contact with the kids anymore because I'm old. I'm 86 years old and I don't have much time left. And I'm frantically wanting to preserve this place where we could, I think, there might be that market you're talking about. I've got the access now through my friend Ron. He can put it on the email. We're already on sciencemuseum.org. They've seen this. And I've got gobs of tapes that I can make with liquid nitrogen, and I don't think you can see this. And also the electrolysis of sodium through glass. There's a multitude of those that we can make. And now I've got gobs of tapes of demonstrations that we've made that I think might have a market if they could be advertised and publicized like you talk.
You would be amazed at what the market is for anything. Because when you have 3 billion people that are capable of buying it, there's enough out there to buy it to make it worthwhile. It's just getting to those people. The science of marketing on the internet.
Well, I think we could probably get wrapped up in speculating on a lot
Sure.
of specific ideas, and maybe somebody can make wooden bathtubs work, and power to them, bless them. But you couldn't pay me $250,000 to make wooden bathtubs.
Yeah.
You
Mine
have
wouldn't
the right
float.
people that are interested in that
Yeah.
to make it work. So I think it's something more fundamental than that. I think you've got
Sure.
to have an environment that, if someone's interested in doing that, then they can go to the place in Stafford County that works on economic development and find out where the resources are
Yeah.
that can help them figure out whether it's, the training for internet sales or, other business plans.
Yes.
But
And we can go right now. Carol, help me with this while he turns this organization.
small business development.
Small business development will come down and help us with that.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to access that information in a local place here. I think
Yeah.
we need to create those kinds of things.
An infrastructure that has access to that.
Capacity, we have to
Yes.
build the capacity.
Exactly. You are right on target. Go ahead.
On what she said a little bit, we have a discussion going on in the community about developing an economic development committee here. Some people think it should be an all-volunteer type of situation. Others have said that, we have some money coming from the county from the mill levy, I think, or something like that for that. And some have said that we should consider hiring somebody part-time at least to try to run that. What's your feelings on that? I think we
proceed down this path, you know, we need to decide that and everyone go home if the answer is no. If the answer is yes, you want to move down, then you need some group to coordinate it. And, you know, let me tell you what they're doing out in Thomastown. They formed a core group to get started. And they took one person off the school board, one person off the city council, one of the college trustees, one of the county commissioners, the president of the college, the superintendent of schools, the city manager, and the mayor. And that group came together and they said, okay, now we're going to talk about who else ought to be involved. They kind of formed a core group to say, okay, this is just to get started. They're not all the decision makers. Just to get started. By the way, they chose all elected officials. That was their criteria to get started. They chose from elected officials and the CEOs of those organizations. That's their core group. And then what they're doing from there, they're going to start inviting people in. They're going to involve the Chamber of Commerce, you know, some others. So they picked a core group. My opinion is that's a pretty good way to go, because those people were selected by a vote. So, you know, they did something to get elected. And I would think that that group for you guys would have to include those positions from across the county. So you have total representation. As a starting point. I wouldn't say, you know, okay, now, you know, we've blessed them and they've got all the power. As a starting point.
We have some good organizations here, Stafford, the city of Stafford has the Pride of Main Street Committee, which is a great job. MAC has, Maxwell has, club, we've got the community involvement program, St. John, but then we've also got the St. John Tourism Committee, we've got this, we've got that. And it seems like so many of us are duplicating each other's efforts, and we're kind of going, you know, one person will come in, another person will come in with the same thing, and it just, like I say, it's like a bunch of Vikings out running a boat, nobody's beating the drum the same way.
Out in Colby, the college was trying to pass a bond issue for a recreation center with a pool, and the rec commission was trying to do the same thing. And they were like, "You're doing that?" Yeah. And that was part of why they started bringing it together. Yes, I think you make a good point that you need that group communicating and in some way guiding the process. Now, what I would recommend is that you guys decide and do something. You know, make a decision, move on, and then invite somebody in from like hometown competitiveness, maybe somebody from Visionary, which if you one or the other, both, and then sit down and say, okay, let's start talking. How do we want to proceed? You know, at some point, do something. Don't just be paralyzed by, well, what should we do? Make a decision and go with it. You'll probably do something wrong. In fact, I guarantee you'll do something wrong. Correct it later. Does that make sense to you? But form some kind of steering group. And I would attach some logic to it. But the one thing from my point of view, involve every community. If you don't, it won't work.
That's our whole goal here tonight.
I think tonight that we need some kind of consensus. You know, everyone said, yes, I think we should at least take the next step. Okay? And the next step would be then to say, okay, how do we want to form this? I haven't asked Steve this, but geez, I know somebody that'll go around town handing out flyers and will get people together that might coordinate that for you. Is that a possibility, Steve? Possibility. And I'm sure there's others that work just as hard. Yeah, you guys know the people. I just happen to know Steve. I know about 4 people in the room, and they're all superstars, so I pick any one of them. Other comments, questions?
Well, we started a CPI, I think, Community Involvement Program, and we've already got a core unit trying to start, but I suppose starting, like you said, with the ideas of maybe we need more information of what we've got, what the possibilities we got.
Yeah, you know, this hometown competitiveness, it grew out of Nebraska where they started studying what works. That's kind of what it's about. Rural communities, and they study what works, what doesn't work. That's a place I would start. And like I said, I have no affiliation with them, but they've done good stuff.
Yeah, to amplify what Jim said, I mean, he's got a point. We do have a group here in St. John, but our thesis tonight, or our concept, is get the whole county involved. We took, when we set up the bylaws for the community involvement program, we moved the boundaries out to 5 miles, correct? out to the Stafford County line.
Yeah.
And that's what we're gonna try to correct tonight.
I mean, how do you go about attracting some of the people you talk about? We had a community involvement program going, but we don't have any, you know, I don't want to single out any entities, but we don't really have anybody on our community involvement program that represents some of the groups.
Well, and I threw those out because they're elected officials. Those people ran for office, people voted for them. I would not exclude people who are volunteers at all. Wouldn't exclude them at all. But you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, and that's why I think we need some of those kind of people on our.
Yeah, sure.
I'd almost make this offer. The building I got, I would almost be willing to deed it. We've got a fantastic school plant up there. We've got a fantastic library. There isn't any reason why we couldn't integrate this institution here with that. I'd almost deed it to them just with the idea that we could, and stay on as a curator on inside and work with kids, if they would be willing to learn this stuff on hands. That would be a poor place that we could, with all of this, we do experiments there indicating harnessing wind energy, harnessing solar energy. We even, years ago, run some engines off of alcohol that we made. I've got all that potential there that they can see the basics. And plus the mathematical interaction. It can combine the on hands with the math. They can see this math doing something. And this could be, there's nothing more important in your community than your educational system. And this could lead then to the basics for everything in alternating current. I can demonstrate three-phase electricity. All of it can be done with junk stuff that's been made.
Sure. Go ahead, you got a comment.
I would suggest that there's something else that is probably more important to the development of the community, regardless of its size, and that is jobs.
Yeah.
All right, jobs, where does it come from? It comes from commerce. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Are you suggesting that the principal salvation for these rural counties like ours is the internet?
No.
Is that the only?
No, I don't think that's the only one. I think it is.
That's not the only viable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand it is quite viable, but is it the only?
No, not at all. I think there are lots of other
And
alternatives.
how many jobs would be created with a network of sales in a county like this?
I think that's the $64,000 question. How do you create more jobs? And, one of the things you're going to do, and I don't know all the assets in the county.
Yep.
I know you got Quivira. That's a wonderful, tourist attraction. How do you build around that? I know agriculture's huge. How do you build more jobs around that? What else is going on? I don't know what else you got. I was telling Steve, a group southeast of Wichita, about 80 miles, 90 miles, opened a hunting reserve. They have so much traffic there, they release 150,000 birds a year. They have so many people going down there. It's a gold mine. And it was just somebody's vision and they made it happen. I don't know how many jobs you can create. I don't know what all the areas are going to be. But I know this. If you don't do anything, you won't have any new jobs.
But you have to create a premise to start with, and I think that the premise for success are jobs.
Yes.
And that's where you got to start from, is something that is going to create jobs that people would be willing to live with.
Hang on a second, Ruth had a comment.
I just want to say, if you want to see how the process that Steve is talking about and how it works, all you have to do is look at Greensburg and look and see what's happened out there. This is how they started. This is what they did. They started with absolutely nothing. They got together. They had group meetings. They had town meetings. They involved everybody. They involved the youth. It's a slow process. I'm sure Steve will tell you, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Absolutely not.
This is going to take time, but it does work, and it will happen, and it can be very successful. And Greensburg is a shining example of what can happen when a community or a county can come together.
And they had a terrible tragedy that forced them to do something. They got a lot of resources that you're not going to get. See, the difference is your tragedy is happening in slow motion. I looked at the data on your population. gonna be harder to do, but it can be done. Go ahead.
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to take a vote and decide we want to do it, if we want to do it. We got 4 people right here talking about set up an initial committee.
Okay.
And if they want to do the HTC, because we already have 2 or 3 of those 4 in place in Stafford County. We had the chairman organization in the one out of Pratt and one out of Great Bend. You know, and if you've ever been to one of their meetings, you can understand what you're talking about, okay? So basically, I think we just need to put it to vote, and if somebody wants to sit on that committee, that's fine. If it- we got the county commissioner, we got state representative, we got administrative, we got newspaper editors, and citizens.
Do I hear an amen?
Amen.
Okay.
I have a suggestion, when someone's talking, stand up, I couldn't hear anything Jerry said.
Jerry, stand up and repeat it because I couldn't hear it down there.
I said that all we need to do is to quit talking and do something. And that's to take a vote of whether you're gonna do this or not, and appoint some people to be your core leadership, and you've got the people they've talked about here. You've got the bankers, you've got electricians, you've got state representatives, you've got newspaper people, you got school board members and superintendents from both Stafford and St. John. I don't know, I'm not familiar enough with the Maxville school board to know they're here. The ones that I do know, they're here. So, I mean, to me, that's simple.
And maybe we should have some of the people here from the different groups, maybe introduce themselves, like the group from Maxville and Mac Club over there. You know, the leader of our CHEP group, which is Steve Freach, of course, and some of the board members. And then, you know, I don't know, see if they're interested in working on it. Maybe, I know our elected officials are, you know, running short.
Yeah,
They've got a lot of things they have on.
Sure. And because I know you don't know each other, let's do, okay, just a minute. Anybody that's an elected official, please stand up. An elected official. You ran for office, and I don't know if you won or lost when you got elected. But you want to introduce yourself because not everyone knows you.
Mitch Menace, U.S. D3 District St. John Husband School Board.
Okay.
I'm Clay Griffith, County Commissioner.
I'm just all state representative.
Bruce Stanford, St. John School District.
J.D. Hager, Stafford County Commissioner.
Becky Thrasher, St. John City Council.
Jim Lakey, St. John City Council. Kevin Davis, St. John City Council.
Jill Simons, Mayor of St. John.
Okay.
Ruth Stipes, State Senator.
Maybe Stafford City Council.
Todd Taylor, Stafford City Council.
Mary Bates, Maxville City Council.
Okay. Now if you're a member of one of those, and thank you for being here, that's impressive. If you're a member of one of those committees that's been talked about, and I don't know all of them, so you gotta help me, stand up. What's your CIP in St. John? Mary Jo, what's the group from Stafford, the Main Street? Those kinds of groups, stand up. We'll start over here with you, go ahead.
I'm Terry Spradley with the CIP, Community Involvement Program.
Robert Trina, Main Street, Stafford.
Lane Rennis, Main Street.
Clayton, are you involved in everything?
CIP.
Okay.
Amy McNair,
Vicki Prescott, CIP.
You're involved in everything too?
Steve Freach, CIP.
Stafford, Main Street.
And you are?
And your name?